Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Bob Holly is so dumb, he thinks the Gava Strip is a topless club.
Joe Giammatteo.
My favorite game is kill the guy with the ball.
I hear it's an Olympic sport now.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history. One episode of Raw is War at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on May 19th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Mobile Civic Center in Mobile, Alabama, and it features Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and Vince McMahon on commentary.
Womp womp.
Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then let's get into it. This started out with a replay of Bret Hart bitching out Shawn Michaels last week, and then the footage that we would have missed if we had been watching live on USA. Fortunately, we have the cock to service us in our viewing pleasure.
I love that they kept on showing the running clock to show you it was after 10.
Yeah.
We got another view of that great sweet chin music, and then the Hart Foundation doing a Benny Hill chase around the ring, trying to get at Shawn Michaels, and finally Austin coming out to assault everyone. Tonight, Bret Hart is here, and he's scheduled to deliver his big surprise. After the intro video taking us into Raw proper, the glass breaks and the crowd pops, so we can have Steve Austin's turn. And opening the show on a high note, Steve comes down to be interviewed by Jim Ross. And I absolutely had to note here the crowd sign that had WCW spelled out as Weird Captive Wusses. That was fucking great. Loved it. Steve Austin wants to address last week's happenings, and the bottom line there is that Austin had no desire to help Shawn Michaels. Austin saw the opportunity for a cheap shot at all of them, and he took it. Austin gets interrupted then by the Heartbreak Kid himself, dressed in a crop top and a jaunty headband, holding his hair up. What we want to establish here is that there is no friendship. This is the single biggest takeaway that I want anybody to have from this. There is only the common denominator of hating the Hart Foundation. So, zero friendship. Once that point gets made, Austin says Michaels can go ahead and leave before he gets his ass kicked. Shawn returns with something equally threatening, and they end up going at it. Officials flood the ring and pull them apart. But that's not the end. Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart appear on the Titantron. Owen says if they can get their crap together, Austin and Michaels can have a shot at the tag titles next week as a tag team. Austin and Michaels argue a bit about not wanting to work with each other. It devolves into another fight that, by this point, has the crowd drooling all over all of it. And once things settle down a bit, we get that classic view of the King and JR at the commentary table, where they tell us that Vader is not going to take on Crush, while showing a graphic of Vader taking on Crush. And that will be what ends our opening segment. With another hot start to an episode, it goes without saying that I enjoyed the hell out of it, but I also wanted to add that, for me, this is a continuation of last week in terms of Shawn Michaels. This is the most I've liked Shawn Michaels in literally years at this point, and I can't help but remember something Joe said a while ago. Shawn finally has some talent to work with that does not revolve around babyface friendship. And it seems like he's ready to swallow his pride a little bit, at least, and make some fucking money here. So, Joe, please, what did you think about the way that this show opened tonight?
Yeah, it's all about the pay window, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, this is the most interested any of us have been in babyface Shawn Michaels, probably, since we've been doing this. So, yeah, and working with Austin certainly helps. These are baby faces cutting a promo on each other. Pretty good pull apart here. The villains are getting exactly what they want here. They want these two guys at each other's throats. So pretty good storytelling for sure. And something I notice, I mean, we've mentioned it, but Shawn Michaels, and I don't mean this in a joking manner at all, but Shawn Michaels has come clean on having some addiction issues during this time period. And the more we watch some of this stuff, especially this episode, it's very noticeable that there's times where you can tell he's under the influence of something.
Yeah.
And I feel like I noticed it here. There's, especially when sometimes he's cutting a promo, he's kind of looking off into space sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's just something I've noticed, like in a lot of these older episodes from this time period. But yeah, this was all really good stuff. I'm very interested in where they're going with this whole odd couple storyline between Stone Cold and HBK.
Completely agree, Joe. I enjoyed it. Stone Cold starts us off, and this is becoming a pattern. They've found a formula that works, and they are going with it because it does. And Stone Cold delivers. He gets on the mic, and as usual, sounds great. So does Shawn Michaels when he calls him out. And before we complained about all of the friendship stuff with him and Diesel and him and Sid, this is the anti-friendship. These two guys hate each other, but they're going to be forced to work together if they want a shot at the tag team belts. And then having the Hart Foundation show up on the Titantron, like the Muppet hecklers, just laughing at the dumb Americans fighting each other. It was perfect. Yeah, there was nothing about this to dislike. I liked it all.
I liked Shawn turning on his Texas roots a little bit when he was talking to Austin. He's calling him son.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that segment took us into our first match of the night. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna defeats Crush with the Nation of Domination by pinfall in 3 minutes and 55 seconds in a King of the Ring first round qualifier match. Now, as I said earlier, this was originally supposed to be Vader, and Vader is here, but doctors have decided that Vader is in no fit condition to face Crush, and we find out that Vader apparently has a, quote, destroyed septum. That's a medical term, in case you were wondering. And we got video footage of Ken Shamrock beating Vader to a pulp. By God. Some great camera angles from their battle at the pay-per-view. So that just is all a way of explaining why we have Hunter here in this match going up against Crush. You'll remember that Hunter was already in a King of the Ring qualifier match last week, and he lost to Ahmed Johnson by disqualification. Jerry Briscoe comes up on our screens, subbing in for Gorilla Monsoon as the authority figure here, stating that the reason Hunter is getting an extra chance is because Hunter was erroneously informed that last week's qualifier match could only be won by pinfall or submission. And since Ahmed won by DQ, Hunter kinda feels as though he got cheated. And as fate would have it, Vader is a big master bitch and can't just handle himself and wrestle tonight. So here we are. Once we got to a visual of ring and entrances here, I immediately fantasized about Chyna body slamming Crush straight to hell. That was a nice visual in my mind there. Once things got started, Crush never looked so good. And that was strictly because Hunter was making him look good, not because Crush was doing it himself. Hunter was selling his ass off here in this. Jim Ross wondered aloud on commentary if Hunter's attempts at a street style would get Hunter to the pay window. And I popped. Always popping for the pay window here at Wrasslin Raw. JR then called Hunter Triple H. I'm not sure if that's the first time, but it's the first time I can remember, and it was damn good to hear.
No, the first person to say it was back when Mr. Perfect was doing announcing. He called him Triple H once.
Okay. Well, things move along in the match until we get to the end. Savio and Chyna trade distractions to the referee when Savio attempts to roundhouse Hunter. Crush was holding Hunter there at the ropes. Savio was on the apron. Hunter ducks and Savio lays out Crush, giving Hunter the pin and the 3 count. Chyna wants Savio's ass, though, and Hunter has to drag her away. What a great visual there. Chyna chomping at the bit to get at somebody, making gestures and faces and saying shit at them. That was good stuff. But that's not the end, as Savio and Crush start to get into it in the ring. That brings Farooq down to try to squash the beef here. Farooq dismisses both of them, but pays a little more attention to Savio as this segment ends. You know, guys, I hate to say it, but this was kind of a boring match because this is what we've come to expect. You know, we know Hunter is going to work well. We know Chyna is going to be a great visual. We know Crush is going to suck. So I think I was most intrigued here by the possibility that the Nation of Domination might continue with their spring cleaning. Joe, what did you have on this match?
Yeah, it started out with a lot of confusion because we thought we were getting Crush and Vader, and they even told us that before the break, and then it's not Vader, it's Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Then we get this confusing explanation. I guess they had to come up with this because of the last minute injury situation. So a little bit of a tainted victory for Hunter Hearst Helmsley's King of the Ring win that we're going to see here in a little bit. But I mean, who cares? Crush lost, so how can we dislike that? I mean, that's just beautiful. I like these issues that the Nation is having. I think it's interesting. It's a more clever way to kind of revamp the members of the Nation rather than having them just randomly disappear. Although I don't think any of us would be sad if Crush just randomly disappeared.
The match, it was the best we're going to get out of Crush, and that is all thanks to Hunter here. But despite Hunter's efforts, Crush did make some stuff look pretty bad. Like, at one point, Crush comes off the top rope with a punch that he took so long to do it. Hunter had 5 minutes to wait for it and reverse it, and that's typical what we've come to expect out of Crush. Thankfully, it ended kind of neat, though. Savio kicks Crush right in the face, which was great. Yeah. And then the beef that he has with Savio, I mean, I think we all here have the same thought that he's going to go the way of PG-13 soon. So that brought a smile to my face, even if the match didn't.
Yeah, some of the things that we get later on this evening here that we will talk about have that very strong suggestion that we're going to be getting what we want soon. There was no time in between matches, though, because we go straight into our next match. Bob Holly, fucking Sparky Plug, defeats Owen Hart with the British Bulldog and Jim the Anvil Neidhart by pinfall in 3 minutes and 38 seconds. I love how Fink has to announce all of Owen's gold, including the 2-time Slammy Award winning part. Just great to hear. We got a split screen with a bunch of Alabama natives wishing Bob Holly well, sending him good luck. Jerry Lawler, though, he has a contrasting video of himself interviewing some real Alabamians. He asks one of them if he and his wife got divorced, would they still be brother and sister? And I popped. And Bob Holly is still coming out to that goddamn racing music. It sounds like it's off of an Atari or an 8-bit Nintendo or something, and he's still wearing the checkered flag outfit. By God. It didn't help that JR also said that Bob Holly had been listening to Alabama native Jimmy Buffett's albums all day to get ready for his match. Because, you know, that's what I do whenever I'm ready to get into a conflict with somebody. I listen to fucking Son of a Sailor. The action in the ring, it did look good, though. Holly always was a decent worker, and Owen is always good, but there was a lot of focus being put on the Anvil and the Bulldog up at the top of the entryway, and, you know, commentary was taking this opportunity to put over other matches and stories. It was kind of a throwaway. But, you know, this match, it ended up being over just as fast as the action in the ring was, which it was. Holly and Owen were working pretty tight. At the end here, Owen was attempting a sharpshooter, but Bob managed to grab Owen's hair, pulling him over into a roll-up pin. I feel like that's the second time we've got that finish in the past couple weeks, but hey man, whatever. Of course, the Bulldog and Jim Neidhart rushed the ring, but Bob Holly exits through the crowd. We got a replay of the finish, and it clearly showed Owen not setting up the sharpshooter correctly in order for Bob to grab his hair. He didn't cross the legs the right way. He just kind of bent over into it. And that was it for this segment. For the first time in months, Bob Holly got to hit the pay window. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
Well, I mean, I was warming up my Jobber of the Week pen when I saw Bob Holly come down, but he saved himself. You know, here they did him a favor. He's in his hometown, and they gave him a surprise win over Owen Hart. And really, they put together a good match. You know, Bartlett, like you pointed out, Bob Holly's issue has never been his ring work. His mic skills are bad. And his gimmick is terrible. But that's not his fault. The gimmick isn't his fault. Unfortunately, he can't overcome that, but him and Owen put together a fast-paced, entertaining, 4 minutes? Is that what you said? 4-minute match?
3.5.
Something like that? Yeah, 3.5. So yeah, I thought it did its job, and by its job, I mean saved Bob Holly yet again from getting Jobber of the Week.
Oh man, you had to put your you had to sit back down and put your bullpen jacket back on.
Yeah, I was pretty upset over it.
Well, Alabama is getting absolutely roasted on this episode of Monday Night Raw.
Almost all from King.
Yes, and so I guess it's nice for them to see their hometown boy get a win here, which is interesting, being that we haven't seen him in months.
He was backstage in the dress room.
He sure was. Yeah. I was kind of half paying attention at the beginning, and I just hear these people wishing Bob Holly good luck, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then realized, oh, he's from Mobile, Alabama. Okay. Now this makes sense, I guess. But Vince loves burying guys in their hometown, and he didn't do it for this, but maybe later we'll see something different. Who knows?
All right. So last week, Paul Bearer had given The Undertaker an ultimatum, and The Undertaker had responded there in that same show. Tonight, The Undertaker is going to be here to continue addressing the situation, so we'll have more on that later. But before we go any further, we have to go to Sonny's Search and Soak Mission, starring Sonny and sponsored by Super Soakers. Talk about a match made in heaven there. At least that's what I was initially thinking. But then the scene starts, and there's Jim Cornette knocking on Sonny's door, presenting her with contracts to sign. She doesn't like that, so she blasts Cornette with a Super Soaker, saying, "Wetter is better." And I was, in the end, really disappointed with how that turned out because, some juvenile part of me really wanted Sonny to get soaked with the Super Soakers and, but can't have everything. Afterwards, though, we went backstage to Shawn Michaels. He was standing there with Ken Shamrock. Shawn says that since he's in a dangerous situation with the whole Austin and the tag team champs thing, Shawn wanted the most dangerous man in the world to be by his side and to be his tag team partner to go up against them. Ken did a pretty good job with his scripted response. He's getting better quickly. It's still clearly scripted, but he's incrementally getting better as the weeks go by. After that was the video intro and opening questions of Jim Ross interviewing Mankind, aka Mick Foley. This is the next installment in that series that started with Goldust. We got that great footage that I can't imagine many wrestling fans not knowing what I'm talking about when I say a young Mick jumping off of a garage roof onto a couple mattresses. I distinctly remember watching this back in 1997 and being like, what the fuck? Some of the start of my Mick Foley fandom there. Mick remembered a time when he was in pain and covered in blood, scaring children, and that was when he realized that he wanted to be a wrestler and love what he did. He wanted to bleed for a living. During this interview, Mankind consistently calls JR Jimmy, and I loved it. And next week, in the next installment, they're going to talk about Dude Love, Cactus Jack, and the Death Match. So, just as an FYI to our listeners, I left a lot of things out of that recap. This is something that, in my opinion, too great to summarize effectively, so I do encourage everyone to go back and watch this. This was just as great as I remember it being back in the day. And I think what makes this work where Goldust didn't is that we weren't trying to get Mankind over as a fucking babyface here. Even when breaking kayfabe, Mankind was kayfabing it. And the cherry on top is that this is a 2-part series. We are going to get more of this next week. We are going to continue developing Mankind and elevating him as a standalone figure, building more of that mythology around him. Ryan, I loved the interview. It was, again, it's what we remember from back in the day, and it holds up so incredibly well. What did you think of the interview and also that Sonny Super Soaker commercial?
I'll start with the Sonny Search and Soak Mission thing. I'm a little confused. I don't. Maybe Joe has some news. Maybe one of these segments was too risque for them to show, because I don't know if you noticed, but we get 2 segments of this tonight. Yeah. This is the first one. We get the exact same commercial, and it says episode 2 for both ones. So we're missing episode 1.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Okay, so I thought maybe they decided that they had to cut that one out and they just reran the episode 2 or something. But so yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. We see Jim Cornette get blasted in the face. He seemed to like it. I don't know. We end with the Super Soaker tagline, "Wetter is better." But the main point of this segment is the Mankind interview with JR. You know, I didn't remember that it was this close to the one with Goldust, that they were, week after each other, back to back here. But this one is so much better than the Goldust one for many reasons. For the last 2 weeks, I complained how much I hated that the Goldust ones broke kayfabe so much. These ones do a masterful job of balancing that tightrope of bringing in aspects of his real life, but keeping the kayfabe there and not completely destroying it. And the segment works the best because of Mick Foley. Mick Foley is, I don't want to throw shade towards Goldust, but he's no Mick Foley. And this is in, I guess, lack of a better way of describing it in wrestling terms, this was like Oscar-worthy shit out of Mick here. I mean, I'd take this over the Titanic any day. There's really nothing more to say other than Mick Foley just knocks it out of the park here. This is an iconic interview for a reason. And, Bartlett, like you said, it still holds up.
Bartlett, you have kids. Do Super Soakers still exist?
Yeah, kinda. I mean, they've been so diluted and, so many China copies have been made that they're kind of just commonplace now. They're throwaways, whereas, whenever we were kids, they were high-end items.
They were the shit, yeah. Because this one that she's using is pretty awesome. I mean, it's it's huge.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette's acting was pretty funny there. He gets sprayed and just goes, oh! Shawn, if I'm Shawn Michaels, I too am going to select the guy who punches and kicks people for real and breaks their nose. That's who I'm selecting for my partner, so can't blame him there. Yeah. And the Mankind interview, I agree with you guys. It's just what a great thing to see. I had no idea that we were going to get it this soon either, so that was nice to see. The thing is, we're going to have different parts here, but this is part 1. And Mick Foley is married with kids, and they didn't get into that, which Dustin, they just fucking blew up his entire...
let's not talk about later.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just told us everything about him. His dad is Dusty Rhodes. His wife is Terry. He
likes to cry.
He has a kid. He cries. So they kind of they kind of just revealed everything about Dustin, where with Mick Foley, they're kind of saying this is a real person but he's also this really deranged person.
He still has the mask on.
Yeah, he's still in character. Kind of going with like a Michael Myers type thing a little bit here. So, by the way, the music was fucking perfect. The music over top of it was his music, slowed down, which was just fantastic. 3 faces of Foley. They insert the tip into the 3 faces of Foley. I got to say, I have a confession. My favorite face of Foley is Dude Love. I cannot fucking wait until Dude Love. I have a feeling it's not going to hold up that great, but I'm still looking forward to it.
Oh, have mercy, Daddy. Yeah, since we're going there, mine was always Cactus Jack, just because. Bang, bang, Not that Mankind is bad, necessarily. It's just...
Yeah, I'd have to go with Cactus Jack as well. It's the first thing I remember him as.
Yeah. All right, well, it's good to talk about things that we remember fondly, because here's one that we will probably forget very soon. Our next match. Scott Taylor defeats Leif Cassidy by pinfall in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And Ryan, Scott Taylor, that's a familiar name, isn't it?
It is. Scott Taylor was a Jobber of the Week all the way back on October 24th, 1994. way back.
My goodness. Well, that time between then and now, he has certainly improved his skills as he comes away the victor here. No more jobbing out for Scotty.
He got an entrance here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And they call it his WWF debut. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I saw him on WWF television before. It's just he was a jobber.
I'm just going to pretend like that didn't happen. At the start of this segment, Jerry Lawler informed us that Paul Heyman at ECW started some legal proceedings to prevent Rob Van Dam from returning to the WWF. So it seems like that's the end of that. We'll see what happens there, but not holding out too much hope for RVD coming back. And wow, Scott Taylor really looking a lot like Scotty 2 Hotty here. Just imagine Scotty 2 Hotty, but without the crazy mushroom hat or whatever the hell that was, and still having a mullet. Scotty 2 Hotty immediately took it to Leif Cassidy, and I immediately thought about the Scott Putski debut last week and how this match was already light years ahead of that one. Some of the action here, Leif's whiplash in the corner, that looked great. And that was about it. It was just as quick as it started. 2 minutes and 40 seconds, keep in mind. It was over. Scott Taylor reversed Leif Cassidy into a roll-up for the pin and the 3 count. But that wasn't the end. Once again, Leif goes over and is yelling at Jim Ross, screaming, pounding on the commentary tables, saying that he can't take it anymore, throwing a tantrum, yelling, stomping away up the ramp. Joe, between last week and this week, it really looks like it's time for old Leif to go learn a new gimmick somewhere else. What did you think of this match?
Yeah, this wasn't very good. This was Scotty 2 Hotty, Scott Taylor, whatever we want to call him. He was just trying to get all of his shit in rather than having an actual wrestling match here is what it seemed like. So it wasn't very good. Leif Cassidy slammed him so hard a couple times. Like he had that whiplash slam on him. Probably hurt like hell. And then he slammed him face first with a suplex. Maybe shattered Scotty's face there. I don't know. But this was ugly. I didn't like it.
Yeah, there was nothing real special about this match, that's for sure. Scott Taylor came in. There were a couple moves that looked okay, and then there were a couple that looked a little rough. One move that did stick out, Leif Cassidy did a reverse in the corner that looked kind of neat. He kind of flipped Scotty over and then like flapjacked him right on his face. So I don't know. It looked kind of cool and painful, but type of move I've never seen before. So I'll give Leif a little bit of credit there, but it wraps up really quick. I mean, they just kind of treat it like a standard jobber match. You know, this was not going to be anything special. That's for sure.
Yeah, really, the only positive that I can see in it is that if we're right about Al Snow leaving and going and being Al Snow in ECW, this is a fairly clever way, I guess, to give him a story to take with him over to ECW and explain things. But, you know, I guess that's something that we'll find out here soon in the future. Next up, we're going to go backstage. Steve Austin has apparently found his tag team partner, although if we're really going to be talking about this, and I didn't mention it before with Shawn Michaels and Ken Shamrock, I still didn't get the whole searching for tag team partners thing, because Owen challenged Austin and Michaels as a tag team, and then Austin and Michaels went and started this whole partner search without any word from anybody else.
Owen clearly said the stipulation was if you two could get together,
yes,
and join in a tag team, you could have shots. So yeah, I don't know how they got it in their heads that they could pick a partner, but
get your crap together is, I think, exactly what he said. He used crap in there a couple times. I was just kind of unsure about what exactly the story was here and how that was getting told.
Let's just forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really worth dwelling upon, because what we do get is Austin walking into Sable's dressing room, where she was mostly naked, but covering herself with an Austin 316 shirt. For a split second, I almost had a heart attack and thought that he was going after Mark Marrow, who naturally would be found in a dressing room marked Sable. Austin does pause briefly to acknowledge that 316 shirt. Sable keeps telling him to get out, and Austin replies with a, "Jesus Christ, what's the problem?" while he was slamming her door. I popped for that. On commentary, JR noted that while Shawn Michaels has seemingly found a partner, it doesn't seem like Austin is trying very hard to find one for himself, which I thought was a nice little point to make. As we made the transition from hour 1 to hour 2 of Raw, we got got the complete replay again of what happened at the end of Raw last week. As a matter of fact, I think it was the exact video package right down to the Vince McMahon voiceover from the one that we had to start things off in this episode. After that extremely long replay of everything, we came back to the Hart Foundation coming down to the ring and the very disappointing sound of Vince McMahon on commentary. That's the best way to put it, man. Bret, he was here to supposedly give us his big surprise. I had to notice that Bret was wearing a Simpsons t-shirt. That was pretty cool. Bret revealed that Shawn Michaels isn't the only one that's going to overcome a knee injury and return at the King of the Ring. Bret will also be there, and Bret promises that he will never wrestle in the United States again if he can't beat Shawn Michaels in less than 10 minutes. By God, that's a spicy little stipulation to throw out there. I like what I'm hearing with that. But Shawn Michaels comes up on the Titantron to directly argue with Bret. He points out that Bret couldn't beat Shawn in 60 minutes. What makes Bret think he can do it in less than 10? Spicy. But the answer to that is the Hart Foundation. Shawn says that he'll meet Bret at the King of the Ring, but only if each member of the Hart Foundation will be handcuffed to ring posts. And I keep on liking this more and more. Shawn pointed out that even though Bret has been having some sunny days,
my friend,
Shawn is going to wipe the floor with Bret, and Bret accepts. Of course, Vince kept interrupting all of this with, "Oh my," and "unbelievable."
So terrible.
Joe, this is another one of those points in WWF history that's constantly referenced. Shawn's sunny days comment. And while we're already well into this feud, it keeps feeling like it's getting more and more personal. What did you think about Austin breaking in on Sable, the return of Vince McMahon to the commentary table, and this challenge to set up Shawn and Bret at the King of the Ring?
Well, Stone Cold busting in Sable's locker room, I think, was just a cheap way to show a topless woman from behind, I guess. An Austin 316 shirt. I thought that was funny. Vince on commentary is just, it's going to be my low light. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. But it was the first hour was just so nice, you know?
Yeah.
And now we get this. But yeah, the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels exchange of words here. It's crazy how we just kind of flip the switch is what it seems like. You know, we're getting all of this classic stuff now. It's just hitting us all at once. You know, we got the wheelchair Sweet Chin music last week. And then this week we're getting the sunny days. It just makes me wonder what we're going to get next week and beyond that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and just how much iconic stuff in one episode.
Oh yeah.
I didn't remember the sunny days was in the same episode that we got the Mankind interview.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So we're really getting hit with a lot of good stuff here. Beyond the fact that this is the Sunny Days promo and everything, this is still really good stuff that, you know, we're looking forward to seeing the possibility of Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at King of the Ring with all of Bret's goons handcuffed to the posts. I think that sounds pretty interesting to me. So good stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Bret Hart, at the beginning of this promo, though, I was laughing my ass off because he's telling Shawn that you didn't give me a chance to speak last week. When he took up the entire time. I think that was just rubbing it in Shawn's face, which maybe is why Shawn comes back with the sunny days comment when he does finally get up on the Jumbotron or on the Titantron. And I feel like maybe we should explain, just in case we have some listeners out there that don't understand the sunny days comment. Shawn Michaels is basically breaking kayfabe here and saying to the world that Bret Hart is sleeping with Sunny. And Bret Hart is a married guy with kids. So this doesn't go over well backstage. After this episode, him and Bret are going to continue to hate each other, I guess, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clear that up in case someone didn't really understand all this talk of the Sunny Days promo we're talking about. But whatever the outcome was, it led to a great exchange between these two, a classic exchange between these two, and it just continues to be awesome.
Yeah, agreed there. Just when you think that it can't get any more personal, we get sunny days. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but things were bad before, but it's the sunny days comment that really ratchets it up for Bret. That's the thing that legitimately pisses him off more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's what causes the big fight in the back where Bret pulls out the chunk of hair.
Right. And, from what I understand, backstage, the guys are in Bret's corner on this. This was stepping over the line as far as, promos go.
Yeah. Well, so there's all of that great historic stuff that's going on with one of the most legendary feuds of all time. And then there's our next match. Rockabilly with the Honky Tonk Man defeats Goldust with Dakota Runnels and Marlena by disqualification in 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Goldust immediately ruins this by asking the crowd if they want 2 Marlenas. And the crowd, for a split second, is duped into believing that they're going to have 2 hot chicks coming out here in scantily clad dresses. But that's not the case. Goldust goes on to ask if they want a big one and a little one, which, I didn't know where this was going watching this. So I kind of thought, what, is this going to be like another midget wrestler? Like, is that
That's what I thought, too. That's what I thought,
Mini
too.
Goldust, yeah.
That would have been so much better.
Oh, jeez.
And he then follows that with, you know her as Marlena, and this is our daughter. Marlena and little Dakota start coming down the entryway, and Jerry Lawler's response, "Give me a break, McMahon," summarizes my feelings perfectly. They even interview the kid in the ring. I fucking hated this. I hated it. I'm not going to dwell on it because...
Just calm down. Rockabilly's going to come out and save it.
Yeah. The only good part of it, though, I do want to say is that Jerry Lawler said that he bets that the stork that delivered the kid was probably arrested for carrying dope. So that was a great line. Joe, you're right. It was to the point where Rockabilly coming out was a relief. And I can't believe that I can't believe I'm there, but here we are. That needed to be over. Couldn't fucking stand it. I suppose if you want to get Goldust over as a babyface, make him beat up an obnoxious shit like Rockabilly. That makes him look pretty good. The crowd kind of liked it. That doesn't necessarily mean anyone will care long term, though. At one point, Rockabilly climbed to the top rope to attempt to move, and he had a gold smear around his mouth. It looked like he was like huffing spray paint or something. It was pretty funny. Goldust copied some Dusty Rhodes moves and actions, which commentary pointed out, while also copying some of Dusty's showboating. And when Rockabilly got tied up in the ropes, that distracted the ref. Honky Tonk Man came in with that heirloom to attack Goldust, but Goldust reversed it and gives Honky Tonk the shot across the head with a guitar, getting a huge crowd pop. And Goldust then mimics playing the guitar afterwards. That got a nice pop as well. I enjoyed seeing it. The ref had only seen Goldust with the guitar, though, and so gives Rockabilly the win, even though that doesn't make any sense at all since Goldust never touched Rockabilly with the guitar. But who gives a shit? People are cheering for it. Hopefully we'll all just move on. Ryan, as much as I loved seeing how well Honky Tonk sold that guitar shot, which he did, I also wish we could all just move away from forcing Goldust into being something that he isn't. It's all well and good for Dustin Runnels to be the family man and the father outside of the ring, but none of us give a shit about that. We want Goldust, the bizarre one, in the ring. I just want Goldust to be allowed to be who he is organically instead of shoehorned into this shit. What'd you think of this match?
I hated everything about this match from beginning to start. We start off Goldust. I'm sorry. From beginning to end.
In other words, it should have never started.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I mean, Goldust completely kills his character at the beginning. He introduces his daughter. After all of this bizarre shit that we get out of Goldust, he now comes out with this, I don't know, what was it, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid? And
yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to pile on a kid, but this kid was terrible. I mean, she didn't remember her lines. She had no ring skills. She needs to go the way of PG-13 immediately.
Getting the Doomsday Device.
when the wrestling started, I couldn't get into it because I was already just dumbfounded by the start of this match. And then Rockabilly and Goldust, how are they going to save a start like that? And then we end it with one of the dumbest endings I've seen in a long time. Why would Goldust get disqualified because he attacked the other guy's manager? When have we ever seen that before? I just, we don't star rate, but this is a dud, in my opinion, all around.
What I did was when the daughter came out, what I did was I checked the litter box and there wasn't anything there. So I bought this chipping net over the winter for chipping golf balls. So I started working on my short game a little bit. So I missed this whole thing, really. I just listened to it.
Needless to say, you cut off 2 strokes of your game during this.
I did.
Yeah, I can't really blame you there. Like you said, Ryan, I don't want to be harsh to the poor kid here, but that kid should have never been in that position.
No.
I'll just leave it at that.
But let's blame the kid.
Nobody cares, kid. Let's go backstage to Ahmed Johnson now. Ahmed was in a locker room sitting on a bench looking quite perplexed. Vince wanted Ahmed's comments on Farooq playing the, quote, race card last week. Ahmed actually does a great job with this. He says Farooq sucks, but Farooq had a point with the lack of black champions, even getting Vince to clearly admit that there has never been a black champion. But then the music gets cued and Vince hurries us to a commercial break, just as Ahmed is saying that he's going to be the first black WWF champion. We go backstage again. This time Austin is searching for somebody, and he finds Harvey Whippleman.
Handsome Harvey.
He's there asking Handsome Harvey to just stand in the corner at the ring because Austin is going to do all the work anyway. But they're interrupted by the Brooklyn Brawler, who wants to be Austin's partner. Austin throws the Brawler through the interview set, that chain link fence and metal barrels, yells that the Brawler is a bigger piece of trash than Harvey is, which I popped for hard. And that ends with Austin holding Whippleman by the lapels and saying, "You're going to sit your stupid ass in that corner and watch me beat their asses, ain't ya?" And then that makes Harvey his official, quote-unquote, official tag team partner. After that, we got that replay of the Sunny Super Soaker commercial. Again, exact copy of the one we saw earlier, like Ryan said. And that's it for this segment. One of the things that I loved about the Attitude Era and still love about the Attitude Era, and I've mentioned it before, as we've gotten more of them consistently, are these backstage stories that unfold between matches, between individuals. They sometimes help perpetuate the story. More often than not, they're entertaining. And it's no surprise that Stone Cold Steve Austin is always at the top of his game in these. Ryan, what did you think about Ahmed Johnson's promo, Steve Austin finding handsome Harvey Whippleman to be his partner?
I don't know if this interview with Johnson was kind of squashing the feud between him and the Nation, because they've kind of moved on at this point, and we have Ahmed Johnson agreeing with Farooq. I mean, he says, "I don't typically agree with Farooq, but he does in this one instance." So yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent build-up of the belt and laying a little more credence to Farouk's claims that no black man has ever won the belt yet. So just a good way to further that. And then I loved Austin tossing the Brooklyn Brawler around like the piece of trash that he is. I thought that was a pretty good segment as well. And Bartlett, like you said, yeah, we're getting more and more of these backstage segments, and it works. It's for the better.
Yeah, I agree. Ahmed and Farooq, it sounds like they agree on the fact that Vince McMahon is a racist. So that's good stuff. And
you mean a racist?
Isn't that racist? And Stone Cold talking to handsome Harvey. I feel like when that was pitched, it probably sounded something like this. "Bro, if Austin needs a partner, we should give him handsome Harvey." And seeing him toss Artie Lang, aka the Brooklyn Brawler, man, that was so awesome.
Oh, there's a reason he's the what'd you say, Ryan? The Duke of Jobbers or the Prince of Jobbers?
Duke of Jobbers, to go along with the Duke of New York.
Yeah, he sold that toss through the set pretty fucking well, like the piece of trash he is,
and is a piece of trash. Yeah.
So following all of that, Ahmed's comments about Farooq, let's go to our next match. Farooq, with the Nation of Domination, defeats Rocky Maivia by pinfall in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I love the entrance here from the Nation, partly because it's becoming more clear that D'Lo Brown is separate and distinct from the other nameless goons. He's dressing differently. He's walking apart from the nameless ones.
Did you hear that?
What?
The severe lack of rapping as they came down to the ring.
Oh my goodness.
Well, the other thing that I really enjoyed was that Vince highlights that PG-13 are gone and never to return.
Okay.
Never to return.
Never.
Straight
So
to
maybe
hell.
we should be happy that Vince is back on commentary.
That's a little bit of a stretch. I mean,
He delivered the best news of the night.
But
So
we could have came to that conclusion on ourselves after a couple weeks.
unbelievable. Farooq makes a show of trying to be Rocky's friend here based at the start of this, based on their similar skin tones. But Rocky had none of that, and the match gets going. I was immediately impressed with how strong Rocky looked in his clothesline, his tilt-a-whirl slam, and then selling for Farooq. Both Rocky and Farooq were looking great in this. After crotching Rocky on the ropes, Farooq puts this match away with a solid dominator to get the pin in the 3 count. Remember, this was a 2 minute and 50-second match. But the story here continues as Crush and Savio jump in to attack Rocky, but Farooq stops them. Farooq wants the Nation out of the ring, and the only drawback there was it seems like Crush was arguing with Farooq a little too much, getting a little too uppity with the big dog of the Nation, instead of keeping his damn jailbird mouth shut.
Piece of trash.
Things quickly move away from the ring, but I was really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this because I was excited about how the match turned out, not just the action in the ring. And, yes, it was a quick one, but really, Farooq and Rocky both looked great in this. I love the fact that we're getting this new layer to the Nation. It feels like progress is being made by seemingly tying Rocky Maivia to the Nation of Domination. Only good things can happen from there. Joe, what did you think of this?
yet another classic story possibly being started here. Farooq showing compassion for Rocky Maivia.
Yeah.
The Nation of Domination is what really put Rocky Maivia, The Rock, on the map. So if this is where it starts, that's pretty exciting. So quite an episode here so far of just displaying the start of some of these classic moments.
Yeah, on top of it being a classic moment, the 2 minutes that it lasted, it was some good action. These were just two big, strong guys that were beating on each other and making it look really good. 2.5 minutes or whatever it lasted, but by the time we get to the end, seeing Farooq, kind of push his minions off the Rock and looking to, as you both stated, looks like we're recruiting Rock for the Nation here, which is a piece of the puzzle in the Rock's development. And that is great to see, along with the continuation of Crush looking to be on the outs with the Nation. So all around, very short segment, but it worked. The one thing I did want to point out, though, was did you catch before the match, JR pointed out that Henry Godwin was supposed to wrestle tonight, first time back from his broken neck, but that match has been bumped off television. We were informed. So Too bad about your neck, Henry. Get the fuck off TV.
Oh, poor hog. Yeah, I was really excited about this, the finish of it specifically, because I've said it before, the Nation of Domination is one of my favorite stables of the Attitude Era, and whenever I said that, I did not mean the PG-13 Crush version of the Nation of Domination, because up to this point, they've just been kind of, the angry black guy stable, and it's moving forward from here, I'm pretty sure, where they become bigger players in just the overall storytelling scene. We're going to get some great stuff out of that moving forward, and I'm really excited about it. Let's go backstage again. Something was going on that cameras and officials were rushing towards, and once they finally got there, it was dark and it was really hard to tell, but commentary clarified for us that it was the Hart Foundation relentlessly beating the shit out of Bob Holly. Almost as good as blasting him in a stairwell. Like
Little
Ahmed
super
Johnson
soaker.
did. Yeah. After a commercial break, we came back to Vince in the ring and The Undertaker coming out for an interview. Vince goes straight to it, referencing the fact that Paul Bearer has a secret that Paul is threatening to tell, and then he asks if The Undertaker would like to tell us what Paul's talking about, because naturally, The Undertaker would just want to spill the beans on that.
I like how he basically had no response, because it was like, you idiot. No?
Undertaker completely ignores it. Instead, he wants to talk about Farooq. Says Farooq decided to play the race card, and at first I was like, what the fuck? Like, now The Undertaker is getting in on this?
Unbelievable!
But The Undertaker does salvage it. He says that he's not white, he's not black, he's the Reaper of Wayward Souls. That got a big pop from the crowd and a pop from me. And he also says that when Farooq is sitting in the dressing room after their match, wondering why he isn't the champion, it won't be because Farooq is black. It will be because Farooq can't beat The Undertaker. And I fucking popped. What a great line. Vince won't drop Paul Bearer's secret, though, and The Undertaker gets in Vince's face to say, "This is not the time," getting a dramatic gulp of the Adam's apple from Vince. But then the crowd pops again as the screeching voice of Paul Bearer hits the house PA, saying, "Oh, yes, it is, Undertaker." The bandaged face of Paul Bearer was then up on the Titantron, saying he's going to open Pandora's box if The Undertaker doesn't come back to him. The Undertaker gives a really lukewarm, "I need more time" response. And Paul Bearer accepts that, but he says that he'll give The Undertaker 7 sunsets, which I thought was a great turn of phrase to come back to him, or Paul Bearer will reveal those secrets. Joe, we got a new chapter to the Paul Bearer story here, but I think the bigger story is the fate of Bob Holly. What do you think is going to happen to Sparky Plug moving forward here?
I agree. What a great moment for Sparky earlier, but now he gets the Vince McMahon hometown burial that he deserves.
Straight to hell.
Straight to hell.
Can't let you ride that rush for too long there, pal.
Yep. Why don't you go hit another wall at the snowball race, you fucking jobber. So speaking of race, I'm tired of Vince talking about the race card with Farooq, but pretty good responses from Undertaker, like you said, Bartlett. I liked that. And yeah, the whole 7-day thing from Paul Bearer, that's going to get me to tune in next week, right? So that's pretty good stuff. And Undertaker saying, "Listen, I'm buried in work here. The paperwork is piling up on my desk. I need more time."
Yeah, poor Bob Holly. I guess this was the penance he had to pay for that win earlier. Okay, he got on television and he got to hit the pay window for a Raw, so I'm sure he was happy about that. Undertaker comes on here, and at first when he talked about the race card, I also was a little bit worried, but when he came back with that he wasn't white or black, but the Reaper of Wayward Souls. What a perfect line, and it really shows the Undertaker the last couple months. He's kind of been turning a little bit darker. He's been turning into the dark Undertaker who works in the dark magic a little bit more. Ultimately, it's going to peak with the whole ministry thing where he's fucking sacrificing people and whatnot, but I feel like we're on our way there, so that's kind of cool to see. But his response to Paul Bearer saying that he needed a response right away, it sounded like someone, like a guy taken by surprise by the first time a woman he's seeing says she loves you, or say he's like, I'm gonna need some more time, and then he just kind of like brushed his brow and quickly walked away. It was a weird response, but Paul Bearer definitely salvaged it by saying the 7 sunsets to make up your mind. That was perfect and a great way to end it.
Now I have this image in my mind of Bret Hart cornering Bob Holly at the start of this show and saying, "Listen, man, we're going to give you this win over Owen, but we're going to fuck you up afterwards.
It's going to cost you."
It's like the opening scene from Dazed and Confused, like just chasing him down. He's trying to get away because he wants to escape. Anyway, let's go now to our final match of the night. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeats Jim the Anvil Neidhart by disqualification in 1 minute and 51 seconds. It always feels like the Anvil, with all of his yelling and heavy breathing and turning beet red constantly, it's like he's always on the verge of a heart attack. Sometimes it just gets uncomfortable to watch. It looks like he needs to maybe relax a little bit. Austin quickly got the upper hand in this match, but then the rest of the Hart Foundation came out. Brian Pillman joins commentary, and after that, Austin takes an opportunity to go after Pillman, pulling him out from behind the announce table and attacking him. That does not last long, as the Anvil puts a stop to it and drags Austin back into the ring. Pillman wasn't happy with that, though, because he entered the ring with a crutch and broke it over Austin's back. That's what gives Austin the DQ victory. But that's not the end of things, as the Hart Foundation comes in to attack Austin. That draws out Shawn Michaels, carrying a steel chair. He delivers some hits and saves Austin again. After the ring clears out, JR quickly jumps in to inform Austin and Michaels that, per Gorilla Monsoon, they would be facing Owen and the Bulldog for the tag titles next week together as a team. They both act indignantly shocked. But again, the challenge was made to them as a team. All of that finding a partner stuff was entertaining, but ultimately pointless, so we can just pretend like that never happened. After both are there saying that neither would work with the other, another brawl erupts between Austin and Michaels. Officials flood the ring all over again to break them up, and we fade to black. Ryan, once again, we have a match that was more for the sake of setting up the finish rather than for the sake of the match itself. That's not a complaint. It helped to set up the Tag Team Championship match next week. It keeps the story moving forward. So overall, not a negative, but not necessarily as strong as some of the recent finishes we've had. What'd you think about this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. It wasn't bad, but the moment they came down and there was no other special stipulations, you kind of knew how this was going to go. And it went that way within a minute. The moment Stone Cold got the upper hand and it looked like Jim the Anvil Neidhart was about to pass out from huffing and puffing, the Hart Foundation comes down and interrupts everything. And we get the hot finish with everyone in the ring, including Shawn Michaels coming down, and we get the teaser for next week, which we kind of already knew, which is Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold are going to have to team up with each other to go after the tag team belts. The one big takeaway I will have with this that's a big positive in my mind is finally there's a storyline that involves the tag team belts. It's a real live storyline that's relevant. Yeah, it's with two teams that aren't tag team partners really. They're just big superstars mashed together, but the tag team belts matter here. So that's a good thing.
And certainly better than the two dudes with attitudes.
Yes.
Stuff. So yeah, it was predictable. I think the Anvil has his place and purpose here in the Hart Foundation, but I don't really need to see him in a main event match of Raw, even though it's against Stone Cold Steve Austin. This was just a little too predictable, I think. Well, yeah, one thing I observed, maybe I just haven't been that observant, but I noticed a lot on this episode, the black mats on the outside and the black ring stairs. I'm not sure when they made that switch, but they look fucking great. And I really noticed it in this episode a lot.
I think the same time they also switched over to the all red ropes. There's no red, white, and blue anymore. They're all red.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was at the same time. Yeah.
All right, well, as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you have that first?
Well, we've already said, how many things are just fantastic in this. The Sunny Days comment, the Mick Foley interview with Jim Ross, the Rocky Maivia possibly aligning with the Nation of Domination. I would definitely recommend everyone go watch this episode of Raw.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the Mick Foley interview. I think this really stood out the most on this episode as my highlight. And my low light has to be the Runnels family bullshit.
Yep, I'm going to be falling in line with you, Joe. A lot of highlights here. A lot of iconic moments in this episode. So as you stated, definitely one to go back and watch again, but I'm biased, but I had to go with the Mick Foley interview. He just did a absolutely fantastic job here. It's iconic for a reason. And my low light, very similar to yours, Joe, but I'm going to pin it right on Goldust's daughter. She is the low light. Goldust's daughter is the low light.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite as harsh as you there, Ryan, but my low light is also Goldust's kid in the ring, and just that nobody needed that, period. Didn't do anybody any favors. My highlight, like you've both said, so many options to pick from. I love having this plethora of choices in front of me. But even though the Mankind interview is a solid contender, my highlight ended up being the Farooq and Rocky match. It wasn't just a great match, but it was a great mini chapter in the story of the Nation of Domination, and it got me so excited for the future and where that's going to go. I can't wait to see it. I'm fucking stoked for that. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around May 19th, 1997 for us?
Yes, I do. Do you guys remember me mentioning the pyro to start the second hour of Raw is War, kind of copying from Nitro?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Meltzer seems to think that adding Vince McMahon in the second hour on commentary
like Bischoff.
is another copycat move there. So we'll have to see if that trend continues.
I hope not.
We talked about Vader earlier. He is legit injured from the Ken Shamrock match. His legs were shot from all of the leg kicks that he took, to the point that he could not really walk at all until Friday.
Jesus.
And needed fluid drained from his knee.
Jesus.
He also broke his nose in 4 places after catching a knee from Ken Shamrock.
Destroyed septum.
So it looked stiff for a reason.
Pretty stiff, yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer also thought the Mankind interview was absolutely fantastic, so he loved it. Dave Meltzer says, judging from his delivery, there appeared to be something wrong with Shawn Michaels, and there was some heat on him for making the comment about Bret seeing some sunny days, since that was an inside reference that was not agreed upon. I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but there are rumors spreading now that the WWF is trying to build a light heavyweight division.
Oh.
And where you would have caught this was during the Scott Taylor match. They were mentioning that he is something about him being a future light heavyweight star here in the WWF. So there seems to be rumors spreading that may be in the near future. And that is all this week.
All right. Exciting stuff, especially after all of the things they've done with the European belt. We could really use another title in the mix here.
Yes.
Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW, just at gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most incredible Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on May 26, 1997, with matches featuring Rockabilly, D'Lo Brown, and many more. So, my head is bobbing, even though you can't see it. For Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.